Local television programming was interrupted by two nervous anchors who constantly spoke directly to each other rather than to the camera. It was as if they needed verification before they continued. The journalists were a well-known couple because it was the only TV station in the area. The small airport restaurant where passengers preferred to wait for their flights was almost full, despite the fact there was only one scheduled departure and it was still over 2 hours away. The patrons were silently glued to the broadcast, not wanting to miss a single word. The handful of waitresses were doing their best to serve the larger-than-normal crowd, while keeping their eyes on the news, and they took orders from their tables in lowered voices. Everyone was curious about the unscheduled arrival of a Frontier Airlines flight no one recognized, and the female anchor read a headline about the plane as if a UFO had descended onto the runway. It was currently the only passenger plane parked near the building. The other occupants on the tarmac were 6 single-engine Cessnas lined up in a neat row. The male anchor reminded the viewers, if they didn't know already, that the town only received flights from Sky West, a company that partnered with Delta. The plane could be seen from the restaurant, and some of the silence in the restaurant was caused by a feeling that the passengers on the plane were watching them. It would have surprised them to know the anxious passengers sitting inside the plane felt the same way. A banner moved across the bottom of the TV screen, and the viewers were torn by a desire not to miss something that was spoken while reading the headlines. According to the banner, North Korea had launched a missile from its only submarine, but unlike its previous missile tests, the missile had flown inland and landed in the North Korean city of Cheongjin. Unsurprisingly, no updates were coming out of North Korea about the tragedy, but over 600,000 people were living in Cheongjin, and satellite information indicated the possibility that the missile had been a nuclear weapon. The headline on the banner changed from North Korea to France, and the news only bore a small similarity to the first headline, but as small as it was still enough to startle the viewers. The military had been brought in to help the police control protests that had grown violent, and they had reportedly used lethal force. The banner said hundreds of protesters had been shot in the streets of several cities, including Paris. The reporters were reading the headlines as fast as they came in, and sometimes the stories overlapped with the banner at the bottom of the screen, but every headline ended with the same phrase. They were developing stories that would be updated as soon as more was known. The female anchor told their audience they wouldn't take any commercial breaks, and she promised they would stay with them as the stories unfolded. She'd barely finished her promise when the lights flickered in the studio, and the broadcast ended with static.